In this video, we're going to be talking about the crazy lineup of RF glass that Canon is bound to release in 2021, or at least announce. All the information coming right up. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Gaston right here, and before we continue with this video, I want to remind you of my contest of the free Sony a7C giveaway. To enter, it's super simple. Simply subscribe to this channel, enable notifications, and go follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Gaston Shutters. I'm going to be making the announcement on December 24th or the 25th. Good luck to all of you guys. So let's talk about the news, guys. Canon Rumors posted this information, and thank you for sharing the leaks. Very exciting stuff coming up from Canon. So 2021 is going to be a crazy year, not only on cameras, but also lens releases. Let's start talking about the very first lens right here, straight from Canon Rumors. And this one is the 70-200 f4 image stabilized USM lens. Now, the uniqueness about this lens is, number one, this one is going to be an affordable lens for what I can assume, of course, f4. But the second thing is this one is the smallest 70-200 millimeter lens ever. This one is said to be as big as a can of Coke, guys. This big, 70-200 f4, and of course it's going to have the external zooming like the f2.8, which, by the way, is the smallest 70-200 when it's completely retracted. Now this one is actually even smaller, so it's going to be a great alternative for travel, being able to pack all that reach in such a small footprint. Now the next lens that most likely we're going to see right away is the 50mm f1.8 STM technology. And once again, we're going to have this prime lens using the older focusing system, the STM stepper motor. It's a little bit slower, a little bit noisier, but we also have the same technology on the 35mm right now, which is $450, $500, and that lens is actually incredible, guys. Now these lenses are not going to have the L glass, but I use the 35mm all the time, and it's great quality. So good thing that we're going to have an affordable 50mm. Now let's talk about some of the unique lenses that we're going to see from Canon, because we're going to also see tilt shift technology coming to the RF. We're going to see crazy prime lenses coming in, and also some new zoom lenses. So for those that are brand new to tilt shift, the very first company that created the very first tilt lens was actually Nikon. Nikon, okay? The other day, you guys burned me because I say Nikon. It's not Nikon, it's Nikon. All right, so they were the first one back in 1962. They released the very first 35mm that had a tilt capability, which tilts, the element of the film strip. Now, Canon in 1973 created the very first tilt and shift lens that tilt and shift the lens away from the film strip, and in this case, of course, it's going to do away from the sensor. So the very first TSR lens that we're going to see is the 14mm f4. So we're going to have a tilt shift ultra wide lens. We're also going to have a 24mm, but this one is going to be an f3.5. Now both lenses are going to be L glass, and of course, because they tilt, they don't have focusing system. Those are going to be manual focus lenses only. Now here comes the very first unique lens, and I'm actually really intrigued to play with it. This one is the 10-24mm f4 USM. Now 10-24, guys, I have a 12-24 f4 from Sony. Sony also introduced the f2.8. I believe that Sigma also has one, but Canon is taking it a step further with the reach of their lenses. 10-24, pretty impressive. Another one that also breaks the rules, and this one is the 14-35mm f4 image stabilized USM technology. And again, USM is the faster, focusing silent ultrasonic motor system. Now, 14-35mm is also like pretty groundbreaking, guys. The f2.8 version, which is 15-35mm, outstanding lens. This one is 14-35 and is also image stabilized. So ultra wide 14mm 35, I can see this lens being the go-to lens for real estate photography, YouTube videos, vlogging, landscape. Really powerful. Next up is the 24 f1.8 image stabilized STM macro lens, and again, this one is kind of like similar than the 35mm, which is the closest lens, has the same property, you know, same aperture, and I'm assuming that this 24 also is going to be around the $500. So good call, Canon. Now let's talk about a lens that is not going to be cheap for sure. This one is going to be the RF 35mm f1.2 L glass USM technology. And again, super wide aperture f1.2. You know, we know the price of the 85 and we know the price of the 50mm. Those are not cheap lenses. This 35 is not going to be cheap. I'm assuming that also is going to be big and heavy. Now let's talk about this lens, which may be kind of like a happy medium, and I'm really excited for this one. This one is the RF 100mm f2.8 macro lens image stabilized USM technology. So 100mm, you know, is actually great. You know, I use the 90mm from Sony for all my micro shootings. You know, when I do those intros here in the channel, you know, detail photography and all that stuff, that's the lens that I use. But 100 is gonna make it an incredible lens also for portraiture, guys. You know, it sits between the 85 and 135. So, you know, 100, 105, that's actually my favorite portrait focal length. So very excited about this lens, and I'm assuming that this one is not gonna be that heavy. And if it is kind of like the 90, it's not a heavy lens and it's not gonna be too expensive. Good stuff. Now, speaking about portraiture, we're gonna see another great lens come up, and this one is the 135 f1.4 USM technology, of course, L glass. And this one is going to be also in the pricier side. You know, this is the mecca of, you know, portrait lenses. You know, a great lens for outdoor portraiture. You know, you could use it at the studio if you have a huge studio. But I love that lens, you know, for the outdoor. I have the Sony version, which is an f1.8 actually. This one is f1.4. So again, Canon is actually going for uniqueness, and is, you know, raising the bar, you know, and outdoing everyone else with these new releases. Let's talk about the zoom lens right here, because this one is going to be, I'm assuming, like an affordable version for a super telephoto. This one is the RF 100 to 400. It's going to have variable aperture of f5.6 to 7.1, and the lens, of course, is image stabilized using the USM technology. Now, Canon is actually using the USM technology on all the larger lenses moving forward, and I'm assuming that this lens is going to be at around maybe $1,200, somewhere in there. That'll be great. Now, the following lenses that we're going to be talking about are prime lenses, and they're crazy. They're crazy. Check this out. So Canon is planning to announce a 400, 500, 600, 800, and 1200 millimeter prime lenses. What do you think about that? Take that, Sony and Nikon. Crazy stuff, man. And they're going to have different apertures, but they're all going to be image stabilized, and they're all going to have the USM technology. So the 400 is going to be an f2.8. The 500 is going to be an f4. The 600 also an f4. The 800 5.6, and the 1200 an f8. So guys, this goes to show you why the commitment for Canon, you know, sticking to the RF mount. You know, we've seen the C70 is the very first cinema camera, and chances are that this is going to be the mount that's going to rule them all. It's going to allow Canon to be completely different from the competition, you know, and this is something that I think Canon is going to be untouched for a while, guys. So let me know which lens excites you the most from this list. You know, drop your comments down below, and also make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content like this one. I'll see you in the next video.